Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight I'll be presenting the story of Jeff Spikkhersbrokken and the man we will call Oliver Brown. We will be calling him Oliver Brown for two reasons. Firstly, late in the story I'll reveal some personal, intimate, sexual information about Oliver Brown. And secondly, Oliver Brown is his name. In the credit where credit is due department, let me say that this story is entirely mine, but that pause that I just used was created in 1991 by Jake Johansson. Last year, my manager got me 2 consecutive writing gigs working for people who jerked me around and then tried to steal from me. After the second of these, I went to my manager and said, "Where are you getting these people?" And he said, "From my friend Jeff." "Your friend Jeff?" He said, "Yeah, Jeff. Jeff Spikkhersbrokken." A few weeks later, my manager called me with a meeting, and I said, "Tell me this did not come through Jeff Spikkhersbrokken." And he said, "Who?" I said, "Jeff Spikkhersbrokken." He had no idea who I was talking about. I said, "Last month you told me those 2 awful gigs came through your friend Jeff." And he said, "Oh, Jeff Morris." I was baffled. "Why did you tell me Jeff Spikkhersbrokken?" He said, "Because it is." And then, explaining in slow tones as if I were a none too bright child, he said, "Jeff picks people very badly. Jeff's picker's broken." This got me thinking a little bit about the people I have chosen over the years to bring into my life. Recently, through Facebook, I reconnected with Katinka Newhoff, whom I had known in college at Sarah Lawrence in the early 80s. We exchanged some funny emails and instant messages back and forth, and then she asked why we hadn't been closer in college. And I had to confess the awful, embarrassing truth. I had been deeply intimidated by her in college. Firstly, we were in Grace Paley's creative writing class together, and Katinka was frankly a far better writer than I. She once came in with a story that she read aloud about a young woman in a wheelchair who gets her first handicapped accessible apartment and goes around turning on all the lights and opening up all the taps because she can. And then she sits alone in her well-lit living room and listens to the water run. And anyone who can leave me with an image like that hangs with me for 20-odd years is clearly a better writer than I will ever believe myself to be. So she was intimidating on that level. Also, Katinka has cerebral palsy. She walks with the aluminum forearm crutches. And I have an irrational, deep-seated, fetishistic attraction to disabled women. And while her disability is not the one that most gets to me, it's enough to make me tongue-tied and a little nervous. So I hit send on my shameful confession and expected never to hear from her again. Instead, Katinka sent me the current draft of a wonderful play she's written about disabled people and those who are attracted to them. So we bonded. We continued to chat online, and finally I worked up the courage to tell her that she has the most onomatopoetic name of anyone I've ever met. She told me that I had once shouted this to her across a lawn in college. She confessed that she uses the joke as an opening line when she has public speaking engagements. She starts by saying, "I'm Katinka. My name sounds like me walking." And then she demonstrates across the stage. Katinka, Katinka, Katinka. She said it always gets a really big, sort of uncomfortable laugh. And I was thrilled, first of all, to be getting a laugh, but more to have given her a line like that that's hung with her for 20-odd years. And I was thrilled that I had had the courage to do a joke like that long ago. I thought I'd gotten that gutsy much more recently when I started talking about having been in England for the Cambridge University production of The Pirates of Penzance, starring Professor Stephen Hawking as the Pirate King. The singing wasn't great, but the choreography was innovative. Some people are uncomfortable about laughing at that joke, which I think is stupid. Professor Hawking himself has heard me do that joke, and he tells me I'm a very funny man. Although, in fairness, it's impossible to tell when he's being sarcastic. I recently got another Facebook request from a woman I dated shortly before I met my wife. I fell madly in love with this woman in Utah. She had no feet and one arm, but she could dance, and I loved to watch her cut bagels. Every time we passed a boutique window display with the half-constructed mannequins, she would point and say, "Look, clothes for me." I found an old love letter from her with a photo folded up into it, and I read the funny, literate words that she'd written and looked at how beautiful she was, and I was pleased to know at last that I wasn't just confused by the wonder of her asymmetry. In college, the first woman I ever really loved had a cleft palate. I hadn't seen her for 20 years when she visited LA last year, and I met her at a coffee house. And when I saw her across the room with her bent nose and her scarred lip, I thought, that is a bizarre-looking human. But then like 2 minutes later, she said something so funny that I passed latte foam through my nose. And when I looked up weeping with laughter, she was just beautiful again, just beautiful. So, last week, I got a Facebook message from Oliver Brown that said, "Dylan Brody, I always wondered whatever happened to you after high school." I sent back a message that said, "Hey, Oliver, it's great to hear from you. This may sound like an odd question, but is it possible that you're the only person I ever blew?" He responded, "The only one? You did it so well." I remember it fondly, which is stupid to say, because any man who was blown in high school remembers it fondly. I said yes, the only one. I'm relieved to find out that you're not a figment of my imagination. A few years ago, I got an email from an Oliver Brown who said he had met me at a poker game and then come to a stand-up gig, and I emailed him this question and never heard from him again. Last year, I ran into a guy from high school who mentioned Oliver Dow, and I thought I had transposed the names. So I emailed Oliver Dow. He said, no, it wasn't him. He's straight and married and has kids. He is involved in musical theater in New York, so I submitted my musical to him. Since I think of myself as a happily married heterosexual man, I was beginning to wonder what it would mean if my imagination was creating such figments. Oliver sent a message saying that he has always been blessed or cursed with the ability to get straight men to do things they would not ordinarily do. He suggested that his rugby shirt and early 80s short shorts had gotten to me. I assured him that it was not a function of wardrobe. I told him that blowing him in high school had simply been me trying hard to be more like my father. My father is gay, but claims to be bisexual to spare my mother's feelings. They live together in Boston, I told Oliver, at the intersection of latency and denial. Almost immediately, Oliver typed back, OMG! Exclamation point. There's a great Turkish restaurant on that block. I sat in my office, laughing aloud at my computer screen at the wit of a man I knew so intimately, so briefly, so long ago. I took a simple, sweet sort of satisfaction in it. Oliver, Katinka, all of them. There's something warmly gratifying in the knowledge that for all my strange choices, my perverse fetishes, my congenitally malformed fantasy life, my picker has never been broken.